Good day, my name is Mikhail Johns, and I am representing the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development for Jamaica, MLGRD. Hurricanes, earthquakes, flooding, fires, drought, and most recently COVID-19 have caused devastation within the Americas and the Caribbean region. Disasters have claimed thousands of lives and have caused major disruption in our development, especially our economy. The effects of a disaster in terms of deaths, losses, and damages are large, but we need to remember disasters are not natural. They are the result of human actions and decisions. The effect of disasters depends on three variables: hazards, exposure, and vulnerability. Combined, they constitute risk, which in our context is increasingly related to climate change. As the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) reports point out, the impacts of climate change translate into disaster risk, and if society as a whole does not act now, the frequency and severity of disasters will increase. The region not only suffers from place-specific natural hazards, for example, Jamaica and hurricanes, we are now experiencing the effects of hazards that are transboundary in nature. Haiti and earthquakes, 2010 and 2021, saw neighboring countries have to grapple with being the receiving areas of displaced persons. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines have volcanoes where ash deposit in Barbados has reduced visibility and threatened communities' health and livelihood. Guyana has floods, and dust moving from Africa has darkened the skies of Caribbean countries, increasing the risk of persons with respiratory problems. These realities have shown us that risks in one system have cascading effects that are manifested in other systems. As we have seen in the COVID-19 pandemic, the complex nature of risk requires us to look at the interrelationship between the urbanized world and other natural social systems. Traditionally, efforts were placed on specific climatic and geophysical hazards that countries in the region are prone to, and often disaster risk responders (DRR) were used to responding to one hazard at a time. Today, we are in a multi-hazard environment where first responders face multiple hazards that are complex or emerging hazards such as COVID-19, which are having an impact on the socioeconomic development of the countries across the Americas and the Caribbean. The challenges of managing the pandemic and the impacts of climate change have made two issues evident: the need for policy coherence amongst DRR, environmental management, climate change adaptation, and development policies, as well as the key role of the local government in supporting cohesion and sustaining DRR, climate change adaptation (CCA), and environmental interventions. And also moving forward, to reverse the negative dynamic that we have generated with nature, the region must rethink and innovate their national and local policies. The region is compelled to re-examine the way it deals with systemic risk, national strategies in the quest of achieving strategic coherent planning and implementation at the national and local level. Learn from the challenges national and local levels face in responding to climate-related hazards while responding to COVID-19 and creating a seamless, successful integration of DRR actions into local government and environmental systems. Promote local and community response as a necessary step to unearth the underlying risk factors and response capabilities existing at the local level while capitalizing on the benefits of ecosystem-based approaches which contribute to building resilience to disaster risk and climate change. The region is cognizant that achieving coherence requires an interconnected approach supported by multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary efforts which are aligned to the Sendai Framework, Paris Agreement, Sustainable Development Goal, as well as each national adaptation plan. Also, that it is essential to advance the role of the local government and supporting sectors in providing incentives, nature-based and ecotourism solutions, as well as opportunities that support an integrated and sustainable approach to achieving DRR in the context of development decision-making and investments and environmental management. Disasters cause annual 314 billion US dollars in losses in the built environment alone, and climate change is expected to drive these losses even higher in the coming decades. Therefore, it is vital to enhance the role of local government, environmental management, and environmental sustainability as avenues to strengthen DRR in building resilient economies, and also to move towards securing investments in disaster risk reduction and resilience building to safeguard sustainable development and economic continuity of urban communities. Taking measures to reduce and prevent the effect of disasters is something all territories have to consider, regardless of size, population, or location. Through the Shelter Management Program, Jamaica moves towards preparedness. With a total of 867 shelters across the island, Jamaica is committed to temporarily house persons who may be impacted in a disaster event or live in vulnerable locations and have to move to a shelter before the impact of a hazard. Traditionally, the shelter management program has included training of shelter teams, shelter inspection and signage, and shelter mapping. Given the impact of COVID-19, shelter guidelines had to be revised in keeping with the COVID-19 standards to include sanitization, temperature checks, and isolation spaces designated for families within the shelter. An innovation coming out of guidelines is a new role. A designated member of the shelter team is now responsible for screening and temperature checks of shelterees prior to entering the facility. All facilities also have isolation rooms as stipulated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness, MOHW. These innovations, done jointly by the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, show the need for continuous review and adaptation of strategies to better respond to challenges posed by multi-hazard situations and the systemic nature of risk. Thank you.